And Madam Chair, we're good to go.
All right. So the time is 7:02 on Wednesday, March 24th, 2021. I'd like to call this Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force meeting to order. So this meeting will be held electronically as per section 19(1) of the town's procedural bylaw, number 622819, as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. So we'll start off with the approval of the agenda. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by May, seconded by Mark. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. So moving on, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest from the task force for this meeting? Okay, seems to be none, so we can continue to the next item. So can I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of February 17th, 2021, our last meeting? Moved by May, seconded by Tricia. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, that carries. So we have no delegations this evening. Matters for consideration. Are there any matters for consideration, Mike?
Yes, we have two items on this evening's agenda. The first one is we have Phil Rose Donahoe present again tonight to speak to the updated guidelines. I believe Phil has prepared a presentation. So Madam Chair, I just suggest turning it over to him.
Okay, and I see the item now. So first we have a presentation by Phil Rose, the manager of the Library Square. Welcome, Phil. You have 10 minutes to give your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Hello, everybody. And thanks again for having me. Hopefully this is not hopefully, but I assume this might be the last time I'll present the mural guidelines. And then it will go to council on April the 6th for approval. And then we'll be in the position to move forward with actually releasing the call to artists and do some additional public consultation. So rather than a presentation, what I will do, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair, is I'll share my screen one more time. And I'll just highlight, I'll go through the mural guidelines one more time, and I'll just highlight the changes that we've made, as well as some of the additions. And then at the end of it, if we can just, or throughout, whatever works for everybody, if there's any questions or comments. I guess what I'm looking for tonight is, I know the task force can't approve the guidelines, so to speak, but just like to have some sort of feedback that we're good to go to proceed with the council report for April 6th. And at that during that report, or in that report, I will be asking for council's approval to proceed or to approve with the guidelines and to initiate the call to the call to artist proposal process, I should say, which essentially means that we'll release the guidelines that we're going to go through tonight. So if you bear with me for 2 or 3 seconds, I will share my screen. And I believe what I'm looking at, this one here. And if I can just have confirmation that you can see the guidelines. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so by now, I'm pretty sure that most people are familiar with the guidelines. I want to say thanks again to the subcommittee, Tricia, Newer, Keenan, and May, for your guidance and advice through the process of putting these together. We have looked at them a number of times. I think this is the 3rd time I've been to the task force. And so I'll just highlight, I won't go through them because I think we're pretty familiar already. I won't go through them in detail, but again, I will highlight the additions and changes that we've made. So the first one I think is we've just changed this to mirror the motion that was brought to council and approved by council back in October of last year. Essentially, this is a diversity and inclusion mural. So we've changed it to the Great Canadian Achievements Mural, which is really kind of just the same, well, it's essentially the same name as the mural that's already at Yonge and Wellington. but we're putting the diversity and inclusion twist on it, of course, and highlighting and celebrating diversity and inclusion in Canada and Aurora. In terms of the project overview, nothing has changed. Again, it just talks about how the town council approved the motion from Councillor Kim back in October. And then in January of this year, we formed the subcommittee that has worked on developing the guidelines. Again, the mural themes are exactly the same, and I don't think there's anything to speak of. But again, just to highlight that we're looking for this mural to celebrate the accomplishments of Canadians of various ethnicities and backgrounds. We want to highlight the significant achievements made by diverse individuals, both past and present. And this is one strategy I think that this task force and the municipality is going to use to raise awareness and educate the public about anti-racism, diversity, inclusion, and equity. As far as the artist eligibility is concerned, nothing has changed. The one thing I will note is that we still have the provision here that artists with the skills and experience that identify as BIPOC will be given priority, although it's not a requirement. So all things being equal, we have a difficult time determining which design we like. We will give preference to individuals that identify as BIPOC. And again, that means Black, Indigenous, or person of color. There has been some progress made. I think at the last time we chatted, there wasn't confirmation yet about the mural location, but from speaking with Councillor Kim as well as Mayor Marakis, we have identified that the north-facing wall of 15242 Yonge Street is going to be the location for the mural. We are working on getting written confirmation from the property owner. So what I have added here was just a map that I took from Google Maps, essentially, that identifies the property. Then I also included a photograph and highlighted the wall that we're speaking of. So it's a large wall, as we know. It's a very prominent wall, which is great. It is something that will have a lot of eyes on it, and it will gain a lot of traction in the community by being at that intersection. The one thing that I have worked on, and I've got some feedback from the director of operations, one of my colleagues, is that given the wall is close to Wellington, which of course is a very busy corridor, it's also a very narrow sidewalk in that area. So there are some challenges in terms of, one, public and pedestrian safety, but also the safety of the artists that may be working in this area. The other challenge is that given that the wall, of course, is quite high, any artist that would be directly applying paint to that wall, if you go over a certain height, you would require using scaffolding or some sort of kind of lift to get you to a certain height. That also requires that you have to have specific training. It's called working from heights training or work from heights training. It's very unlikely that an artist, especially a young artist, would have that training. So what we are suggesting and what we've added to the guidelines, and we talked about this about the previous mural project that we were going to work on for the retaining walls on Yonge Street, is that rather than ask the artist to take working from heights training, which is comes at a cost and it takes a bit additional time, instead of applying the paint or the mural directly to the wall, what we are proposing, and I think this is probably the best solution, is that we're going to actually ask the artist to use what are called medium density overlay plywood panels. And they come in about 4 feet by 8 feet roughly. And we're going to ask the artist if they can actually paint, depending on what their budget is, what their design looks like. They may paint up to 4 or more. And we'll basically provide, I've been working with my colleague John Furman as well, to find a location within a town facility that if the artist doesn't have a studio or doesn't have a garage that might be large enough to actually paint the mural in their own property, that we can provide a space for them to do so at one of our town facilities. So we have lots of options to work with, but I think the solution is that we need to have the artist paint at ground level on a plywood panel or some similar product. And then we will have trained staff, whether it's a contractor with working from heights training or town staff, to actually put the mural up. So that's something that I would love to hear your comments on. It's a bit of a change from what our original thought was, but I do know that with the previous Canadian Achievements mural, again, the director of operations said that that was a challenge that we don't want to cross this time. That I think some of the artists didn't have that training, and it certainly opens up the municipality to liability. And it certainly threatens, I think, the public safety and the safety of the artists. So that's something that we have to consider. I think for the most part, that is pretty much the other major change. The additional submission requirements as well as the application requirements are the same. Again, we're looking for design drawings to be uploaded through an online application. They have to provide sort of a statement as to why they're interested, what their artwork is about. Those are all very straightforward things that haven't changed. The only other thing that I would highlight is that the selection process has also remained the same. So again, it would be the subcommittee that was out of the task force, plus myself that would be doing, and one external art professional. And again, I may reach out to the cultural center or some artists in the community that would help us in the selection process and evaluating the design proposals that we get. The budget as well hasn't changed. There's $10,000. This is essentially how we propose that it be broken down. $8,300 for the artist to do the actual design and production, $1,500 for materials, up to $200 they can be reimbursed for liability insurance, and that essentially gets us to $10,000. The artist can propose something different. So if they want to move, and I think I mentioned this previously, if they want to move $500 to the material, supplies, and equipment budget, or cut that budget and take more, they're certainly welcome to propose a budget in their online application. The other thing that is of note, and it was mentioned, it's not mentioned here, obviously, in the guidelines, but it was mentioned in the memo that I circulated for tonight's meeting. What we are proposing is that we do, and we've had this conversation, but never landed on something firm until now. We wanted to do some additional public consultation. And so what we're proposing is, and there was also that balance between being prescriptive in what we wanted on the mural in terms of who or what should be on the mural. We don't want to be too prescriptive to the artist and give them as much kind of creative license as possible, but we also wanted to have some public consultation and public feedback. So what we're proposing is that beginning on April 13th, which is about a week following our anticipated approval from council on April 6th, that we'll use the Engage Aurora online platform through the town's website, as well as our social media channels, to open up a public consultation process that essentially asks the community, who do you want to see on the mural? I think Ashita circulated, oh, that's not the right one. 1 second here. This document, if I can find it. Oh, there it is. So basically what we wanted to, we're going to use this language that was circulated, I think last evening by Ashita, and it just provides the details of what we're looking for. This is the language that will go out to the public as far as soliciting their feedback. Really what we're saying is that you can submit the name of an individual, a group of individuals, an event, a landmark, foods that are culturally important, celebrations that are culturally important, and others. And so there's going to be a 2-week period that the public can go on, and there's going to be no limitation in terms of how many names or individuals they can submit. With those, so following April 31st, for about a week or so, I'll circulate those names and suggestions to the subcommittee. And then I think what we'll try to do, depending on how many we get, we'll try to whittle them down to a manageable number. And then we'll incorporate those names and individuals and suggestions into the call to artists as something that we want the artist to incorporate into the design in some fashion. Whether it's an actual representation of the person figuratively, whether it's some kind of abstract interpretation of their accomplishment or achievement, that's essentially what we're looking for, beginning on April 13th and ending on April 31st. Once we've been able to incorporate that into the revised call to artists, we'll release the call to artist application process, which is online, on May 12th. We're going to do a virtual information session. I know that Mark had mentioned this was a good idea, and I think it is as well. It provides us to reach out to any of the artists that were interested to basically say, come and meet with us. And everybody's welcome, subcommittee and task force and whoever else. There'll be an opportunity to hear questions from the eligible artists, those that are interested in applying, and also to us to walk through the guidelines with them and basically, answer any questions and clear up any confusion if there is any at that point. We're looking to close the submission for artists on June 11th. We're going to go through a selection process, which is going to be completed by June 25th. We'll notify the artist the following week that they're successful or not. We'll contact everybody. And then we'll work with our legal and risk staff at the municipality to come up with an agreement that is suitable and spells out what the deliverables will be, what the budget will be. There'll be language around liability, the timetable, etc. So what we're anticipating is that the mural will begin in July, and we're going to provide upwards of, July, August, September, really 3 to 4 months for the artists to do their work, which I think is more than enough. And by October 22nd, we want the mural to be completed. There'll be an installation now that we're proposing with our operations staff. And then hopefully in November, we'll be able to do some kind of celebration in the community, whatever that might look like. And if we can, we'll dovetail it with any other kind of events or happenings that are happening in the municipality. So that's essentially that. And I think for the most part, that's it. So I would certainly, Madam Chair, if there's any questions from any members, I would welcome them now.
Thank you, Phil. So I think first we have to put the item on the floor. Is that right, Mike?
To you, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Okay. So can I have a mover and a seconder to put the following item on the floor for discussion, which is that the memorandum regarding the Canadian Achievements, Diversity and Inclusion Mural Guidelines be received, and that the comments of the Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force regarding the Canadian Achievements, Diversity and Inclusion Mural Guidelines, including the program's themes, location, public consultation process, and timetable, be incorporated into a report to Council for approval. Moved by May, and can I have a seconder? Oh, Mark, thank you. So does the committee have any questions or comments for Phil? May?
Phil, the sheets that they will be painting on, will that have the same sort of effect that we would see on other mural? Like, I'm not sure how that's going to look. Is it just going to be in pieces? Like, if you look at the wall, there's a huge piece in the middle, which I think will be outstanding for a nice sort of a big piece that would fit in there. So if it's going to be put on some sort of plywood or whatever, that the sheets that will be going on, is that going to still have a great effect on the wall? Like, I'm just not so sure how that's going to look. I understand the concern of safety, but
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's something that was just brought to my attention as I was preparing the council report, again with our director of operations mentioning that it was a requirement. So it's certainly something we have to do as far as preventing. I mean, there is potentially an opportunity that we could, through the virtual information session, see if any artists that are there have working from heights training. And if they do, then that might be something that we can issue an addendum to our guidelines to say that might be, given priority if somebody has those, or maybe we could even include that now. I guess the thing is that, yeah, it's very unlikely. And I think it kind of it's an uneven playing field if you have some artists that have this training and some that don't. As far as the plywood is concerned, I have actually seen, I should have shared a number of different, there are murals that I've been part of in the past that have used plywood. The nice thing about them is that, so you could have it just as a 4x8 piece of plywood that is put up as a rectangular piece. The other thing, which is maybe not, I know what you're saying, May, it's probably not as visually attractive as if it was painted directly onto the wall. The one thing it does do is it prevents us from having to do any treatment to the wall, whether it's cleaning or priming or anything like that. So I think it actually may reduce costs, even though the medium density plywood is quite expensive. what you could do if the artist is able to do it is actually create cutouts. And so by using the plywood is you can actually create a three-dimensional effect with the mural. And I will share after this meeting there's one up in Georgina that I worked on. It actually allows you to backlight as well because you actually have them raised off the surface of the wall. So I think it opens up some challenges, certainly for the artist that they have to think about. Artists being artists, I know that they'll probably come up with some creative solutions knowing that they can, they don't have to paint directly on the wall. I'm only suggesting this plywood because I did some research. It's a plywood that has sort of a veneer that is protective against the elements. So it can withstand, the heat and the rain and the snow. So in the mural guidelines, it simply says, this is one option, but the artist is welcome to, prevent or present other options. So I know that doesn't necessarily answer the question, but I think it opens up opportunities, but it also poses challenges as well.
May? To Madam Chair, Phil, the other thing is I think you just answered my one question, and that was what with the fabric, how would that stand out for so many years? As we know, the one that we have right now, it's still impeccable. It looks great. So I think that was my only other big concern is how that would weather, with the kind of temperatures that we deal with in Canada. And if you say that is a kind of material that can stand that would be my, my only concern there. The good thing about this is that I think what could come out of this is if the artist is going to be painting, we could actually do events at Town Park for people to come and actually watch what the artists are doing, which is kind of what I did at Lester-B with the classes. I got the kids to come sit and watch the artists do the work. So that would be another really cool factor is as the artists are working in the park or something, people are welcome to come and see the work. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. I think that's a great idea because certainly the production and the actual art, the mural is going to be painted around the time that we're going to be doing celebrations in Town Park. We're going to be doing culture days through September and October. So I think that's certainly an opportunity to see, the work in progress. If you can, Madam Chair, do you mind if I share my screen one more time? And I'm just going to give you, it's not a great example because, but I'm going to show you what using this type of plywood or this type of material, what it can do from a mural perspective. So just bear with me for 1 second. So I just pulled this up through Google Images. Can everybody see this okay? Yeah. So this is an organization up in Georgina called the Georgina Trades Training Inc. And they've been very successful in previous years. If you can see this image that I'm highlighting here, can everybody see that? It's just basically a white wall with masonry brick. What they did is they actually had an artist that came in from Hamilton, and the theme was sort of the working class or labor through the years, basically the changes of individuals doing manual labor. And so rather than paint directly on the wall, you can see that they used these. It's a very similar type of product. It's like a plywood product, and they were able to have this is it in production, so it's not completed. But you can see that the nice thing that it does, it actually allows you to have, again, that three-dimensional piece to it. You can see that the arms are extended over top of the torso. So it does, I think by having this type of material, it does open up some possibilities. So I'll end with that.
Thanks for that, Phil. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay. I guess I just wanted to comment. I think the plywood solution is probably the most feasible solution to the issue of, making sure that the artist is safe and we don't have to go through all those extra steps of training. And I think I imagine, there might need to be some blocking off that would happen if they were painting directly on the wall, which would obviously be longer than like if they were painting for a prolonged period of time versus like just a little bit of time for installation of those plywood panels. And I think with those panels, there's probably an opportunity to like cut them so that they fit like around the windows so that there's still like a continuity of the mural. And like you said, it's not just like a 4x8 piece of wood kind of stuck up on the wall. So I think that there's, like you said, there's a lot of opportunities there and potential solutions that I'm sure the artists can come up with. Sorry, Wendy, did you have a comment to make? I saw your hand raised.
Hi. The question I have is about, it's, you know, it's a busy intersection. There's a lot of dirt and debris. And so with the cardboard, with the plywood, Mr. Phil, does the, you know, would we have a problem cleaning around it? Is it?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things we will require from the artist, and one of the deliverables that we have promised to work with them on, is sort of a maintenance plan. And so the artist will have to make some suggestions that we'll either, you know, approve or work with them to develop in terms of the care, the long-term care. The artist doesn't necessarily provide a warranty on the artwork, but we want to have some idea that over the first year in particular, that we'll have some way of ensuring that we can clean it. Because you're right, I'm certain there's going to be dirt and debris that are going to, you know, get up onto it. So I think there's going to be, is that what you're, Councillor Gartner?
No, I'm talking about if it's that two-dimensional. So the plywood is going, cutout is going to be forward from the wall a little bit. And that wouldn't be the artist's problem, it would be the town's problem, making sure that if anything gets caught behind it, that it's cleaned, it's always kept clean, whereas a flat surface, you're not going to have that problem. I think it's something we have to think about because we always want it to look good.
Yeah.
And if there's, you know, paper caught in it or whatever, it's
Spider webs or something.
a bird's nest, maybe a bird will find it. But I'm thinking more about debris that will be flying around like paper or scraps, or it's something to consider because we want it to look good. You know, we don't.
Yeah.
We need it to look good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I'll leave that with you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, I would say that, yeah, that's a very valid point. It's something that, it's a piece of public art. It becomes an asset of the community. And like everything we have, there's a conservation component to it. So I think there would have to be some ongoing maintenance. And I'm not exactly sure who in the municipality, which department would be responsible for that. But that's something that we would work through as with the artist in terms of the long-term care. But then, of course, I'd have to speak with my colleagues to find out who would be able to do that ongoing, you know, conservation piece.
In my opinion, we'd have to check it every day to make sure that there was nothing caught in it. The other one you showed us, the mural with the plywood, was that an indoor or exterior mural?
That was, through you, Madam Chair, that was an exterior mural. So that was on the outside of a north-facing wall, and I haven't been up there in some time, but I can certainly know the people there to see how that the conservation and maintenance of that has how that's weathered over the years, and maybe I can get a more recent photograph of that. You know, the executive director there. So I think that's maybe.
Thank you. And the day-to-day maintenance, and Noor's point is good though. You know, is there going to be a safety issue with the artists working on the wall, or how difficult is it going to be for them? Although I'm sure that murals are done on walls all the time, but we want to make sure that the artist is safe. Thanks.
So I saw Mark had his hand raised, and then we'll go to May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The one piece that the one advantage that I noticed in the Georgina example that that Phil had shown is that the people that were depicted in the mural on plywood were individuals, right? So to me, that almost looked like a benefit from a maintenance perspective, in that each individual piece can be maintained rather than having to maintain the full installation at once.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's a great point, Mark. And I think it is one of those things where rather than, if there is one of the components of the mural, whether it's an individual or whatever is portrayed using that plywood, as Mark said, from a conservation perspective, if there is graffiti or it needs to be repainted, rather than having to treat the entire wall, you can dismount that one component, treat it off-site in an indoor space, and then put it back up. So yeah, I mean, as I say, I haven't thought of all the pros and cons, but I think for both options, whether you're painting directly on the wall or using this option, I think there's lots of benefits and disadvantages as well.
May?
Through you, Madam Chair. Actually, if I just remembered now, if Phil, if I'm not very tech savvy, but if you all happen to Google Regent Park murals, you'll see that they've actually, I think, used the plywood, and you'll see pieces of it, and it's beautiful. It's all over Regent Park. And that's where, like I'd mentioned before, I witnessed each individual artist working on their piece in behind at the Nelson Mandela School when they were having a celebration, Freedom Day. So if you Google that, you'll see how cool it is. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's pretty cool. And I just remembered that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, May. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, so if there aren't any, then I will call the vote. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right, that carries. So with that, we'll move on to the next item. And thank you, Phil, again for joining us and for all your work on the mural guidelines.
Thanks again. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye. Okay, so our next item is a memorandum from the manager of procurement around procurement awareness for BIPOC, I guess, community members. So may I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? And the item is that the memorandum regarding procurement awareness for BIPOC be received, and that the Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force Advisory Committee comments regarding procurement awareness for BIPOC be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. So may I have a mover, Tricia, and seconded by May. Thank you. So I'll now hand it over to staff to speak on the item, and I do just have to hop off for a couple of minutes. I will join back in shortly and look forward to hearing from you.
Madam Chair or Mr. Chair, Mark, we'll just ask you to step in briefly while May's gone. And if there's anything comes up, I'll be here to assist. With us tonight is Rachel Wainwright Van Kessel, who's our Director of Finance, and Anna Roberto, who's the Manager of Procurement Services. And so I'll hand it over to Rachel to start with, to briefly describe the memo, and then we can get into some questions after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Anna and I are here this evening as we understand that the last meeting, there was some questions about procurement. I believe you guys were made aware of the fact that we are doing some modernization of our procurement process and bylaw. And overall from procurement, we try to make sure that we have an open and fair and competitive process without any bias towards any groups or favoring anyone in any such way. And as we go through our process to make sure that we continue to have a fair and equitable process, that does not necessarily mean we get the diversity that we could be looking for in the groups that are bidding on our work that we have available. So one of the things that Ms. Roberto and I talked about was how do we ensure we get some more of that diversity? And the opportunity we see is doing some more outreach to various groups, business communities, so that people are aware of how you can actually go ahead and bid on work that the town has available. Because all our bids are posted online And the awareness will actually gather more diversity and give the town a better variety of bids to choose from, more competitive pricing. And it also opens it up to more groups and people to be able to actually bid on the work that we have available. So that is a bit of a summary of the memo that we have here. And we are open to ideas on how we could actually go about doing this and ensuring that we can actually try to encourage more diversity in the bidders that bid on the work we have available.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, through you, Mark.
I'm sorry, Tricia, was that a question?
You're now chairing the meeting, so I wanted to have a comment.
Absolutely, you may.
Sorry,
Thank you, Tricia.
Thanks, Rachel, I might have missed it because you were going a little fast, but where did you say that these the bids would be posted, and how will the outreach to wider communities be done?
So all our bids that are open for public tender are posted on bids and tenders online. So it's all on that website. Anyone who's owns a business can register on the website and then can get notifications of when there's work available or procurements available for them to bid on. And a lot of municipalities actually use bids and tenders. So it wouldn't just be for being able to look at work in Aurora, but there's other municipalities using it as well. So it creates great opportunity for anybody who signs up to be able to look for additional work to expand their business.
Thank you.
I actually have a question with regards to supplier diversity. So have there historically been efforts made to recruit small businesses from the community that are from perhaps underrepresented communities? Like, have there been efforts in the past?
So I'm going to ask Miss Roberto. She can help me with this. I've only been with the town just under 2 years, and she's got much more procurement experience than I do.
Sure, thank you. So no, there hasn't been an actual outreach program to small local businesses. There's actually, going back to what Rachel had mentioned, we're looking for fairness and transparency in the procurement process and having that same fairness to everybody across the board. So within our procurement bylaw, which guides us as to how we procure for the town, which has been approved by council, there's actually a provision in there that we cannot have any local preferences. And that's in line with the trade treaties. So we need to treat everybody with the same level of transparency and opportunity, so anybody can bid. But definitely we are looking at having an outreach program, so that way there will be more awareness created, so people know where they can go, that they can go to bids and tenders and they can take a look and see what bid opportunities there are for the town, and that way they are encouraged to bid on our bids.
Thank you for that, but I apologize if my question was misinterpreted. What I meant was for businesses that have not previously bid on business with the town, more of an education on what the bidding process is. More of an education around how they can participate in town procurement. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, so sorry, I did misunderstand you then. So we have not, on our own through the town of Aurora, reached out to people who have not bid, but as part of the York Region Cooperative, the York Procurement Cooperative, we have had vendor sessions where people who are learning about how to bid, and that is part of the group as a whole. So it's not just our municipality, it's local municipalities as well. So we have had sessions where people learn about how to bid in the future. So that would be for new companies who haven't been through that process beforehand. So yes, we've participated in that.
Yeah, and further to what Anna has said, Well, we tried to make sure we thought an open and fair and equitable process. And as she mentioned, like due to the trade treaties, we can't give any local preference, but that doesn't mean that we can't do outreach to our local community and make sure that the people in our area and the businesses in our area know how they can go and bid on work in York Region and in Aurora. So that the more opportunities, then the more awareness that's out there is better for the local community and local businesses overall.
Agreed. Thank you. Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so if there aren't any other further comments, I will call the vote, assuming that is where we are.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Great. So all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries then. So thank you for your presentation. I think it was Rachel and Anna, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for having us this evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So moving on, I don't believe we have any informational items this evening. So I guess if there's nothing else to add, then we'll move on to the adjournment. Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Moved by May, seconded by Keenan. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. So our meeting is now adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.